The coffee shop was nearly empty on that frigid December afternoon, just 3 days before Christmas. Outside, snow fell in thick, lazy flakes, coating the streets of Boston in a pristine white blanket that would soon turn to gray slush. Inside, Marcus Bennett sat alone at a corner table, his expensive wool coat draped over the chair beside him, checking his watch for the 4th time in 10 minutes. He hadn't wanted to come. The whole idea of a blind date, arranged by his well-meaning but meddling sister Claire, felt absurd at his age. At 42, Marcus had built an empire from nothing, transforming a small tech startup into Bennett Industries, a multinational corporation worth billions. He'd graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune, been named one of the most eligible bachelors in America 3 years running, and had more dinner invitations than he could possibly accept. Yet here he sat, waiting for a woman whose name he barely remembered. Feeling like a nervous teenager, the bell above the door chimed, and a woman in her late 30s entered, shaking snow from her dark hair. She wore a burgundy dress beneath a practical black coat, and her eyes scanned the coffee shop with obvious anxiety. Marcus recognized her from the photo Claire had shown him. Victoria something. She was attractive, polished, exactly the type of woman who usually pursued him at charity galas and business conferences. Their eyes met. Marcus stood, raising his hand slightly. Victoria's face brightened with recognition, and she hurried over, apologies already tumbling from her perfectly painted lips about traffic and the weather. They sat down, ordered drinks, and began the awkward dance of first date conversation. Within 20 minutes, Marcus knew it wasn't going to work. Victoria was nice enough, intelligent, successful in her own right as a corporate lawyer, but every answer she gave felt rehearsed, calculated. When he mentioned his work, her eyes lit up with an intensity that had nothing to do with genuine interest and everything to do with dollar signs. She laughed too hard at his mediocre jokes, touched his arm too frequently, and somehow managed to mention her expensive tastes 3 times in as many minutes. "I'm sorry," Marcus said finally, setting down his coffee cup with more force than intended. "I don't think this is going to work out." Victoria's smile froze. "Excuse me? I appreciate you coming out in this weather, but I don't think we're a good match." He tried to soften the blow. "You seem like a wonderful person, but..." "But what?" Her voice had turned sharp, the polished veneer cracking. "I'm not good enough for the great Marcus Bennett? Do you have any idea how many men would kill to be in your position right now?" "I'm sure they would," Marcus said quietly, reaching for his wallet. "Please let me pay for your coffee. I'm sorry for wasting your time." Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The few other customers glanced over. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "You're going to die alone in that enormous house of yours, and you'll deserve it." She stormed out, leaving Marcus sitting amid the wreckage of yet another failed attempt at connection. He rubbed his temples, wondering why he'd let Claire talk him into this. The barista, a young man with concerned eyes, came over to clear Victoria's untouched latte. "Rough day, huh?" the barista said sympathetically. "You have no idea." Marcus pulled out his credit card to settle the bill, then paused. Through the large front window, he could see Victoria climbing into a Mercedes, her phone already pressed to her ear, probably calling Claire to complain. He sighed and turned back to gather his coat. That's when he noticed them. At a small table near the window sat a woman and a little girl, perhaps 6 or 7 years old. The woman was probably in her early 30s, with honey-colored hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a green sweater that had seen better days, and she was leaning close to the child, speaking in low, urgent tones. The little girl's face was scrunched up, fighting tears. "I know, sweetheart," the woman was saying. "I know you wanted to go to the party, but we just can't afford it right now." "But everyone else is going," the child protested, her voice breaking. "Taylor said her mom bought her a new dress and everything. I'll be the only one who's not there." The woman, clearly the child's mother, closed her eyes briefly, and Marcus saw a depth of pain there that made his chest tighten. "I'm so sorry, Mia. Maybe next year, when things are better." "You always say that," Mia said, tears now flowing freely. "You said we'd have a nice Christmas, too. But we don't even have a tree." Marcus knew he should leave. This was a private moment, a family struggle that had nothing to do with him. But something kept him rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the mother's quiet dignity as she wiped her daughter's tears with a napkin. Maybe it was the way Mia tried so hard to be brave, even as disappointment crashed over her. Or maybe it was simply that, for the first time in years, Marcus was seeing something real. Genuine emotion, unfiltered by greed or pretense. The mother glanced up suddenly, catching him staring. For a moment, their eyes locked. Hers were brown, flecked with gold, and filled with a wariness born of hard experience. Marcus looked away quickly, embarrassed, and gathered his things. But as he stood to leave, he heard the little girl's voice, slightly louder now. "Mommy, is that man leaving his wallet?" Marcus's hand flew to his pocket, but his wallet was there. Confused, he looked back at their table. The little girl was pointing at the chair where Victoria had been sitting. Sure enough, tucked between the cushion and the armrest was a sleek black wallet. Undoubtedly Victoria's, dropped in her angry exit. The mother had seen it too. She bit her lip, clearly debating what to do, then stood up. "Excuse me," she called to Marcus, her voice soft but clear. "I think your friend forgot her wallet." "She's not my friend," Marcus said automatically, then winced at how harsh that sounded. He walked back over and picked up the wallet. "But thank you for noticing. That was honest of you." The woman's cheeks flushed slightly. "Well, it's the right thing to do." Marcus opened the wallet, intending to find a business card or ID so he could contact Victoria. But what he saw inside made him pause. The wallet was stuffed with cash. He counted at least $500 in crisp bills, along with multiple credit cards and a driver's license. An idea formed in his mind. It was impulsive, possibly stupid, definitely unlike him. But something about this moment, the warmth of the coffee shop, the snow falling outside, the little girl's tear-stained face, made him want to do something good, something real. "I need to return this," Marcus said slowly, "but I'm starving, and I hate eating alone, especially this close to Christmas." He looked at the mother, then at Mia. "Would you two like to join me for dinner? My treat, as a thank you for your honesty." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh no, we couldn't possibly." "Please," Mia interrupted, looking up at her mother with sudden hope. "Please, Mom, I'm hungry too." The mother hesitated, and Marcus could see the internal struggle playing out across her face. Pride warring with practicality, suspicion battling against her daughter's pleading eyes. "We can join you?" she said finally, her voice uncertain, making it half statement, half question. Marcus smiled, his first genuine smile of the day. "I'd like that very much." What Marcus didn't know, as he helped Mia into her worn coat and held the door open for both of them, was that this simple dinner invitation would unravel secrets that had been buried for years, challenge everything he thought he knew about family and loyalty, and force him to make a choice that would change 3 lives forever. The restaurant Marcus chose was elegant, but not ostentatious. A family-friendly Italian place called Romano's, just 2 blocks from the coffee shop. As they walked through the snowy streets, Marcus found himself studying his unexpected dinner companions. The mother had introduced herself as Jennifer Walsh, though she'd asked him to call her Jen. She worked as a nurse at Boston General, she'd explained, her shifts often running long and unpredictable. Mia chattered nervously as they walked, her small hand tucked securely in her mother's. She talked about school, her best friend Taylor, and how she'd been practicing her lines for the school's Christmas pageant where she was playing an angel. Marcus noticed how Jen listened to every word, responding with genuine interest despite the exhaustion evident in the lines around her eyes. Inside Romano's, the warmth enveloped them immediately. The hostess recognized Marcus. He'd closed several business deals in this very restaurant, and her eyebrows rose slightly when she saw his companions. But she was professional enough not to comment, leading them to a quiet booth near the back. "Order anything you want," Marcus told Mia, as they settled into the leather seats. "The lasagna here is incredible." Mia's eyes grew wide as she opened the menu, but Jen placed a gentle hand on her daughter's arm. "Marcus, this is very kind of you, but really, we should just have something simple. A salad, perhaps." "Mom," Mia groaned. "He said anything." "Your mother's trying to be polite," Marcus said, smiling at the little girl, "but I meant what I said. It's Christmas. Let's celebrate." Jen looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression. A tiny crack in the protective wall she'd built around herself. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." They ordered lasagna for Mia, chicken parmesan for Jen, and ravioli for Marcus. As they waited for their food, Marcus found himself asking questions he normally wouldn't bother with at business dinners. Where did they live? How long had Jen been a nurse? What was Mia's favorite subject in school? "We live in Dorchester," Jen said, referring to one of Boston's less affluent neighborhoods. "Small apartment, but it's home. I've been nursing for 8 years now, and Mia loves art class, don't you, sweetheart?" "I draw all the time," Mia confirmed proudly. "I drew a picture of a castle yesterday, with a princess and a dragon." "Was the dragon friendly or scary?" Marcus asked. Mia considered this seriously. "Friendly. The scary ones are boring. Everyone does scary dragons." Marcus laughed, a real, unrehearsed laugh that surprised him. "That's very wise. I like the way you think." Their food arrived, and for a while, they ate in comfortable silence. Marcus watched as Mia savored each bite of her lasagna, her face lighting up with pleasure. Jen ate more slowly, deliberately, as if trying to make the meal last. "So what do you do?" Jen asked finally. "For work, I mean." Marcus hesitated. This was always the moment when things changed, when people's perceptions of him shifted from person to commodity. "I run a company," he said vaguely. "Technology sector." "Must be doing well if you can afford to take strangers to Romano's," Jen said with a slight smile. "This place isn't exactly cheap." "We're doing okay." Marcus changed the subject quickly. "What about Mia's father? Is he in the picture?" The temperature at the table dropped instantly. Jen's fork clattered against her plate, and Mia suddenly became very interested in her water glass. Marcus realized immediately he'd stepped over a line. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "That was inappropriate." "No, it's fine." Jen took a breath. "Mia's father isn't part of our lives. He never was, really. It's just the two of us." There was a story there, Marcus could tell, a painful one. But before he could apologize again, Mia spoke up, her voice small. "My dad didn't want me. Mom said he left before I was even born." "Mia?" Jen started, but Marcus interrupted gently. "Then he's an idiot," Marcus said firmly, looking directly at the little girl, "because anyone who wouldn't want to know you is missing out on something pretty special." Mia's face brightened slightly, and Jen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered. The conversation moved to safer topics after that. Marcus told them about his sister Claire and her 3 boys, about the chaos of family gatherings and the constant noise that filled her house. Mia wanted to know if he had any kids of his own. "No," Marcus said, and was surprised by the pang of regret that accompanied the word. "I never got married. Work always seemed more important." "That's sad," Mia said with the brutal honesty of children. "Don't you get lonely?" "Mia!" Jen scolded. "That's not a polite question. It's okay," Marcus said. "And yes, sometimes I do get lonely, more than I'd like to admit." After dinner, Marcus ordered tiramisu for the table. As they shared the dessert, he found himself telling them things he rarely discussed, about growing up poor in South Boston, about his mother who'd worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, about the scholarship that had changed his life and the determination that had driven him to succeed. "Your mother must be very proud," Jen said softly. "She was. She passed away 5 years ago. Heart attack." Marcus set down his fork. "I'd just closed my biggest deal, made my first $1 billion, but she never got to see the house I bought. Never got to enjoy any of it. She knew," Jen said with certainty. "Mothers always know. She knew you'd made it, and that was enough." There was wisdom in her words, born of her own experiences as a mother. Marcus felt something loosening in his chest, some tight knot he'd been carrying for years. As they finished dessert, Marcus pulled out his phone to call Victoria about her wallet. The call went straight to voicemail. She'd probably blocked his number. He tried texting instead, telling her he had her wallet and asking where to send it. "I can drop it off tomorrow," he said to Jen. "No response yet, but I'm sure she'll get back to me." "That's good of you," Jen said. "Most people wouldn't bother." Most people aren't having the evening I'm having, Marcus replied. He meant it. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt genuinely content. They left Romano's around 8 o'clock. The snow had stopped, leaving the city blanketed in white. Christmas lights twinkled in shop windows, and carolers sang on the corner. Marcus walked Jen and Mia back toward the coffee shop where Jen's car was parked. "Thank you for dinner," Jen said when they reached the parking lot. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." Marcus crouched down to Mia's level. "It was nice meeting you, kiddo. Keep drawing those friendly dragons." "I will." Mia threw her arms around his neck in an impulsive hug that nearly knocked him over. "You're nice. I wish you could come to my Christmas pageant." "Mia, I'm sure Marcus has plans," Jen began, but Marcus interrupted. "When is it?" "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at Brookside Elementary." Jen looked embarrassed. "But really, you don't have to." "I'll be there," Marcus said, surprising himself as much as her. "If that's okay with you." Jen studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly. "Okay, if you're sure." As Marcus watched their old Honda pull out of the parking lot, its taillight flickering ominously, he felt his phone buzz. A text from Victoria, finally responding. "Keep the wallet. Consider it payment for wasting my time. And tell your sister to never contact me again." Marcus stared at the message, then at the wallet in his hand, $500 in cash. He thought about Mia's tears over the party she couldn't attend, about Jen's worn sweater and the exhaustion in her eyes. An idea formed. Reckless, generous, completely unlike his usual calculating self. But before he could act on it, a second text came through, this one from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Bennett, this is Patricia Chen, from Boston General Hospital. I'm the head of nursing. I need to speak with you urgently about Jennifer Walsh. Please call me as soon as possible." Marcus's blood ran cold. What could the hospital want to discuss about Jen? And how did they even know he'd been with her tonight? His finger hovered over the call button, his mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. Marcus called the number immediately, his heart pounding in a way it hadn't during even his most stressful business negotiations. The phone rang 3 times before a crisp, professional voice answered. "Patricia Chen speaking. This is Marcus Bennett. I just received your text about Jennifer Walsh. Is something wrong? Is she okay?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Mr. Bennett, I apologize for the cryptic message. Jennifer is fine, physically at least. But I'm calling because I'm concerned about her employment situation, and I understand you spent the evening with her and her daughter." Marcus's confusion deepened. "How did you know that?" "Jennifer called me from the parking lot. She wanted to check if it was appropriate to have accepted dinner from a stranger while wearing her hospital ID badge. She's very conscientious about hospital policy." Patricia's voice softened slightly. "Mr. Bennett, may I be frank with you? Please. Jennifer Walsh is one of the best nurses I've ever worked with. She's compassionate, skilled, and dedicated beyond measure, but she's struggling. Her ex-husband, well, he wasn't actually her husband, but the father of her child. He recently resurfaced after 7 years of absence. He's demanding custody of Mia." Marcus felt his jaw clench. The man who abandoned them both, the very same. His name is Derek Sutton, and he's apparently reformed now. Got himself a good job, married a woman with money, and decided he wants to play father. Patricia's tone dripped with disdain. "Jennifer's been drowning in legal fees. She's picked up every extra shift I can give her, but it's not enough. The court date is set for January 15th. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Because Jennifer is too proud to ask for help, even when she desperately needs it. And because when she called me tonight, she sounded happier than I've heard her in months. She said you made Mia laugh, that you treated them like they mattered." Patricia paused. "I don't know what your intentions are, Mr. Bennett, but that little girl and her mother have been through enough. If you're just looking for some kind of Christmas charity case to make yourself feel good, please walk away now. But if you genuinely care, then you should know what they're facing." Marcus stood in the snowy parking lot, his expensive shoes getting soaked, and made a decision that would have horrified his lawyers. "Thank you for telling me." "And Patricia, Jennifer doesn't need to know we spoke. Understood. Good night, Mr. Bennett. Marcus ended the call and stood there for a long moment, thinking. Then he made another call, this one to his personal attorney, Richard Murphy. Richard, I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow morning. Quietly. Find out everything you can about a custody case, Jennifer Walsh versus Derek Sutton. And Richard, I want to know if there's any way to help her without her knowing it came from me. The next day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Marcus found himself distracted, his mind wandering to thoughts of a little girl who drew friendly dragons and a woman who worked herself to exhaustion to provide for her daughter. Richard called back just after lunch with his findings. It's not good, Marcus. Derek Sutton works for Sutton & Associates, his stepfather's law firm. They've got resources Jennifer can't possibly match. Her court-appointed lawyer is fresh out of law school, overwhelmed, and frankly out of his depth. Unless something changes, she's going to lose shared custody at minimum. Possibly more. Can we intervene? File something on her behalf? Not without her knowledge and consent. And even then, the optics would be strange. A billionaire suddenly taking interest in a random custody case. The opposing counsel would have a field day with that, suggest inappropriate relationships, question motives. Richard paused. Why are you so invested in this, Marcus? You just met this woman yesterday. It was a fair question, one Marcus had been asking himself all day. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I'm tired of feeling useless. Maybe I see something in them that reminds me of my mother and me. Or maybe I just want to do something good without an ulterior motive for once in my life. Well, there might be one option, Richard said slowly. If you were to hire Jennifer, legitimately for a real position, that would demonstrate stability and increased income. It wouldn't be charity or interference, just employment. Combined with a better lawyer, which she could potentially afford with a higher salary, it might make a difference. What kind of position? I run a tech company. She's a nurse. Doesn't your headquarters have a medical clinic for employees? I seem to remember something about that in the benefits package. Marcus sat up straighter. Richard was right. Bennett Industries had a state-of-the-art medical facility on site, primarily for routine care and minor emergencies. The current head nurse was retiring in February. Richard, you're a genius. Set it up. But approach her through proper HR channels, job posting, interview, the whole thing. I don't want her thinking this is charity. That evening, Marcus arrived at Brookside Elementary 15 minutes early. The auditorium was packed with parents, grandparents, and siblings, all chattering excitedly. He found a seat near the back, feeling conspicuously alone and overdressed in his tailored suit. The lights dimmed, and the pageant began. It was charmingly chaotic, shepherds who forgot their lines, wise men who waved at their parents mid-scene, and a baby Jesus doll that fell out of the manger twice. But when the angels appeared, Marcus found himself leaning forward. Mia was in the front row of angels, her face serious with concentration. She had a solo line, just 5 words, but she delivered them with such earnest conviction that several people in the audience chuckled fondly. Marcus felt an unexpected surge of pride, as if she were his own daughter up there. After the show, he waited in the lobby, watching families reunite with their young performers. Mia spotted him first, her face lighting up as she ran over, still wearing her angel costume. You came. You really came. I told you I would, Marcus said, kneeling down. You were perfect up there. I only forgot my line once. But Mrs. Patterson said it was okay because I remembered before anyone noticed. Mia beamed at him. Did you see Mom? She's talking to Taylor's parents. Marcus looked up and saw Jen across the lobby, indeed speaking with another couple, but her body language was stiff, defensive. The woman, Taylor's mother presumably, was gesturing animatedly, while the man beside her looked uncomfortable. Jen's face had gone pale. Mia, honey, stay here for just a second, okay? Marcus said, then made his way through the crowd. Simply don't think it's appropriate, Taylor's mother was saying as he approached. Her name tag read, Diane Foster. Taylor has been friends with Mia for 2 years, but given the current situation with the custody battle, we think it's best if they spend less time together. We have to think about what's best for our daughter. What situation? Jen's voice was tight, controlled. Mia hasn't done anything wrong. Of course not, dear. But the instability, the court proceedings, the gossip, it's just not the environment we want Taylor exposed to. I'm sure you understand. I understand perfectly, Jen said coldly. You're abandoning my daughter when she needs friends most. Now, that's not fair, Diane began. But Marcus interrupted. Excuse me, he said smoothly, stepping beside Jen. Is there a problem here? Diane's eyes widened as she recognized him. Apparently even she knew who Marcus Bennett was. Oh, Mr. Bennett. I didn't realize you were… are you… She looked between him and Jen, confusion and calculation warring on her face. I'm a friend of the family, Marcus said, his voice carrying the quiet authority that made executives quake, and I couldn't help but overhear your concerns about instability. Perhaps you're unaware, but Jennifer has just been offered a position at Bennett Industries. Significant salary increase, excellent benefits. I'd hardly call that unstable. Jen's head whipped toward him, shock written across her face. But Marcus pressed on, addressing Diane. Of course, if you feel Taylor and Mia's friendship isn't beneficial, that's your choice as a parent. But don't dress up social climbing as concern for your daughter. It's unbecoming. Diane's face flushed bright red. Her husband grabbed her arm and steered her away, muttering apologies. As soon as they were gone, Jen turned to Marcus. What job? What are you talking about? Can we discuss this outside? Marcus asked, suddenly aware of the curious eyes around them. They collected Mia, who was oblivious to the drama, and stepped out into the cold December night. Jen's car sat in the parking lot, its flickering taillight now completely dead. Explain, Jen demanded, her arms crossed. Now. Marcus took a breath and laid it all out. The job posting for head nurse at Bennett Industries, the competitive salary, the benefits package. He was careful to frame it as a legitimate opportunity, not charity. You'd be perfect for the position, he concluded. Patricia Chen has nothing but praise for your skills. This isn't a handout, Jennifer. It's an opportunity you've earned. Jen stared at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face. You found out about Derek, didn't you? About the custody case. There was no point in lying. Yes. And you think throwing money at me will fix everything? That I need some wealthy savior to rescue me and my daughter? Her voice cracked slightly. I've been taking care of us just fine on my own. I know you have. And you'd continue to do so with or without my help. Marcus kept his voice gentle. But why does it have to be so hard? Why can't you accept help when it's offered honestly? Because there's always a cost, Jen burst out. Men like you don't do things for free. Derek taught me that. He said he loved me, said he'd be there, and then he disappeared. The second things got real. Now he's back, with his fancy lawyers and his new wife, trying to take Mia away from me. So forgive me if I'm skeptical when a billionaire I just met yesterday suddenly wants to help. Mom, Mia's small voice interrupted. Why are you crying? Jen wiped at her face roughly. I'm not, baby. I'm just tired. Marcus crouched down to Mia's level. Your mom is the strongest, bravest person I've ever met, and she's right to be careful about trusting people. But sometimes, Mia, even strong people need help. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them smart. He stood up and looked at Jen. The job offer is real. You can verify it through HR. Go through the formal interview process if you want. No strings attached. If you don't want to see me again after tonight, I'll understand. But don't refuse the opportunity because you're afraid of my motives. Do it for Mia. Jen was quiet for a long moment, her jaw working. Finally, she nodded once, sharply. Okay. I'll look into it. But Marcus, if this is some kind of game, if you hurt my daughter, I will make you regret it. I don't care how much money you have. I believe you, Marcus said, and meant it. And I wouldn't expect anything less. As they parted ways, Marcus watching the Honda's broken taillight disappear into the night. His phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Judge assigned to the Walsh case is Judge Bernard Cooper. Thought you should know. He's known for favoring traditional family structures. This is going to be harder than we thought. Marcus stared at the message, then back at where Jen's car had been. He'd thought offering her a job would be enough. But now he realized the situation was far more complicated than he'd anticipated, and time was running out. The interview at Bennett Industries took place 3 days later, on December 23rd. Marcus had deliberately stayed away, letting HR handle the entire process professionally. But he'd made sure Patricia Chen was contacted as a reference, and he'd quietly ensured that the salary offered was competitive enough to make a real difference without being suspiciously generous. Jen got the job. She called him that evening, her voice a mixture of gratitude and lingering wariness. "I start January 2nd. The benefits alone will save me hundreds a month. Thank you, Marcus." "You earned it," he said simply. "How's Mia?" "Excited. She wants to know if you're coming to Christmas dinner." Jen laughed softly. "I told her you probably have plans with your family." Marcus thought about the invitation sitting on his desk. Christmas at Claire's house, surrounded by noise and chaos and his sister's knowing looks. It was expected, traditional, safe. "Actually," he heard himself say, "I don't have plans. I mean, I did, but would you really want me there?" The silence stretched long enough that Marcus thought he'd overstepped. Then Jen said quietly, "Yes, I would. We're not having anything fancy, just roast chicken and whatever sides I can manage. But if you want to come, we'd love to have you." Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. Marcus spent the morning wrapping presents, a professional art set for Mia that he'd had his assistant pick up, and for Jen, something that had taken him hours to decide on, a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a nurse's caduceus. Simple, meaningful, not too personal. He also made another call to Richard. "The custody hearing is in 3 weeks. What else can we do?" Honestly, not much without Jennifer's direct involvement. "But Marcus, I have to ask, what's your endgame here? You're getting awfully invested in this family." Marcus didn't have a good answer. All he knew was that when he thought about Mia's laugh or Jen's resilient strength, something in his chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with business strategy. That evening, he drove to Dorchester with his trunk full of presents and a bottle of wine. Jen's apartment building was older, showing its age, but the Christmas lights strung in the windows gave it a cheerful glow. He climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked. Mia threw open the door, wearing a red velvet dress and a huge smile. "You came. Mom, he came." Inside, the apartment was tiny but immaculately clean. A small artificial tree sat in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments and twinkling lights. The smell of roasting chicken filled the air, mixing with cinnamon and pine. Jen emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. She'd dressed up, a simple blue dress that brought out the gold flecks in her eyes, her hair down around her shoulders. Marcus felt his breath catch. "Merry Christmas," she said, smiling shyly. "Merry Christmas." He held out the wine. "I wasn't sure what you liked." Dinner was simple, but delicious. They ate at a small table that barely fit 3, passing dishes and talking about everything and nothing. Mia told Marcus about the art project she wanted to start with her new supplies, her eyes shining with excitement. Jen talked about her nervousness regarding the new job, and Marcus found himself offering advice and reassurance that came naturally. After dinner, they opened presents. Mia squealed over her art set, immediately pulling out the colored pencils to show Marcus. Jen opened the necklace carefully, her eyes filling with tears when she saw what it was. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can," Marcus said firmly. "You're a healer, Jennifer. You deserve to be reminded of that." She fastened it around her neck with trembling fingers, and Marcus saw her touch it gently, as if anchoring herself. Then Mia handed him a lumpy package wrapped in newspaper and decorated with crayon drawings. "We made you something." Inside was a hand-knitted scarf, slightly uneven, clearly made by amateur hands, in a deep blue that matched his eyes. "Mom taught me to knit," Mia explained proudly. "We worked on it every night after you came to my pageant." Marcus ran his fingers over the soft yarn, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of it. "It's perfect," he managed. "Thank you both." After Mia went to bed, Marcus and Jen sat on the small couch, nursing glasses of wine and watching the tree lights twinkle. The silence between them was comfortable now, natural. "I got a letter from Derek's lawyer yesterday," Jen said finally. "They're pushing hard for full custody. They're arguing that he can provide a better life, two-parent household, private schools, stability." Marcus set down his glass. "What does your lawyer say? That we have a fight ahead of us?" She laughed bitterly. "The new job helps, but Derek's stepfather is well connected. Judge Cooper apparently plays golf with him." Marcus made a decision in that moment, one he knew would change everything. "Marry me." Jen nearly dropped her wine. "What?" "Marry me," Marcus repeated, his heart pounding. "Not for real. Well, legally real, but we can annul it after the custody hearing. Judge Cooper wants to see a stable two-parent household. We'll give him one. A stepfather with resources, a stable home environment, everything Derek is offering and more. Marcus, that's insane." "Is it? Think about it, Jennifer. Derek abandoned you both. He gave up any right to Mia the day he walked away. But the courts don't care about that. They care about what looks good on paper, so let's give them something that looks good." "Why would you do this?" Jen asked, her voice breaking. "You barely know us." Marcus took her hand, surprised by how right it felt in his. "Because in 3 days, you've made me feel more alive than I have in years. Because Mia deserves to stay with her mother. And because maybe, just maybe, I'm tired of living a life that doesn't mean anything." Jen stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "This is crazy. Probably. But is it crazier than losing your daughter to a man who never wanted her in the first place?" She was quiet for a long time, her hand still in his. Finally, she nodded. "Okay. But Marcus, after the hearing, we figure out what happens next. No obligations, no expectations. Deal." Deal. They were married 2 days later at City Hall, with Claire as their witness and Mia as their flower girl. Claire had looked at Marcus like he'd lost his mind, but when she saw the way he looked at Jen and Mia, her expression had softened. The custody hearing on January 15th was intense. Derek's lawyer painted Marcus and Jen's quick marriage as suspicious, but Richard had prepared them well. Jen testified about Derek's abandonment, about the years of raising Mia alone, about the stability of her new job and life. Marcus testified about his commitment to being a stepfather, about the love he'd already developed for Mia. Judge Cooper deliberated for 3 days. When the verdict came, Marcus held Jen's hand so tightly his fingers went numb. "While the court acknowledges Mr. Sutton's desire to be involved in his daughter's life," the judge said, "the evidence shows a pattern of absence during crucial developmental years. Furthermore, Mrs. Bennett, has demonstrated consistent, stable parenting. Custody will remain with the mother, with supervised visitation rights granted to Mr. Sutton, should he choose to exercise them." Jen collapsed in Marcus's arms, sobbing with relief. Mia, who'd been waiting outside the courtroom with Claire, ran in when she heard the news, wrapping her arms around both of them. That night, back at Marcus's house, which had legally become their house for the purposes of the case, they sat in his living room, exhausted but relieved. "So," Jen said softly, while Mia slept upstairs in what had become her bedroom, "we should probably talk about the annulment." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who'd shown him what real strength looked like, who'd taught him that wealth meant nothing without people to share it with, who'd brought color and noise and life into his empty mansion. "Or," he said carefully, "we could not." Jen's breath caught. "Marcus, I know this started as a strategy, a way to help you keep Mia, but somewhere along the way, it became real for me." He took her hand. "I'm not saying we have to decide tonight, or this month, or even this year. But I'd like the chance to see where this goes, if you're willing." Jen was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. That real, unguarded smile he'd only seen a few times. "I think I'd like that too." 6 months later, Marcus stood in his backyard, their backyard, watching Mia chase butterflies through the garden Jen had planted. They'd kept the marriage legal, moving slowly, dating like normal people despite already being husband and wife. Jen had thrived in her new position, becoming indispensable to Bennett Industries. Mia had blossomed, her art covering the walls of her bedroom and the refrigerator. Derek had never shown up for a single supervised visitation. "Hey," Jen said, coming up behind Marcus and slipping her arms around his waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About a coffee shop on a snowy afternoon," Marcus said, turning to kiss her forehead. "About a blind date that went terribly wrong, and a little girl who noticed a forgotten wallet." "Best wrong turn you ever took?" Marcus pulled her closer, watching Mia's joyful dance through the flowers, hearing her laughter ring out in the warm summer air. "The very best." And for the first time in his life, Marcus Bennett understood that real wealth had nothing to do with money. It was measured in moments like these, in love freely given and gratefully received, in a family that chose each other every single day.